And the villain of the week is Deadly Bubble Wrap.
Show off.
Hello my faithful watchers and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Series 11 Episode 7 Kerblam, written by Pete McTighe and directed by Jennifer Perrott. Now as usual there will be spoilers for this episode, so be sure to check it out first and then come back here. All caught up? Well, let's get a shift on. Literally. Inside the TARDIS, the Doctor receives a package with a mysterious message saying, "Help me." Thinking there's trouble, the Doctor, Yaz, Ryan and Graham arrive to investigate the warehouse moon orbiting Kandoka and the home of the galaxy's largest retailer, Kerblam. Each of them must infiltrate areas of the factory whilst avoiding the worker robots and discover the truth behind the corporation that has many technology workers as opposed to human beings. When I first heard the title Kerblam, my expectations soured a bit. I thought that using a sound effect for the title was a bit too silly. However, I kept my head high thinking it could at least be fun, especially with the look of the robots. Pete McTighe as a writer I'm not really familiar with. However, doing a bit of research, he does have some history with the programme, even if it's not writing for the programme previously before. Under the final years of the classic Doctor Who DVD range, he wrote the sleeve notes for the DVDs. For those of you that don't know, in each classic DVD you get a small booklet that has notes about the story, noteworthy things that happened, its production history, etc. Furthermore, he is now a content consultant for the classic Blu-ray range. Yeah, he certainly does know his stuff about Doctor Who in the classic series, and I think it's funny how his career has turned out. Now he's writing for the programme. Funny what's around the corner in this industry. Though with all that in mind, that definitely showed in this week's episode, as Kerblam seems to be an episode that hits all the right notes, which makes Doctor Who the most unique show on TV. Kerblam proves to be another fun, witty, clever, if not entirely perfect episode in Series 11's lineup. Our TARDIS team this week continued to shine. Admittedly, their moments in this week's episode didn't blow me away as much, but they still have good moments that make me stick with this wonderful team throughout Series 11. I liked Ryan's instant connection to Kerblam as back home. He says he works on a factory and even dismisses the distress call that they get as a joke that he and his co-workers sometimes do the same. It's just small details like this that can relate to people who have worked in factories, myself included. My favourite moment from this week, though, had to come towards the climax when he, Yaz and Charlie, played by Leo Flanagan, had to go down the waste disposal unit, which was like a big slide. However, he was initially hesitant going down because of his dyspraxia. Now, I did mention last week how his disability hasn't been mentioned much this series, but I'm glad it was brought up again, but not shoved down our throats. Ryan describes it as interesting and frustrating and difficult, but regardless of what holds him back physically, he will face a problem head on because, and I quote, "That's how we roll." He's aware that his disability can hold him back, but because of the Doctor's influence, he won't run away from danger because of it. You can see that the Doctor has made him a better person, but you can also interpret it as making his nan Grace proud, who would have wanted him to go on and not let this disability beat him. Great stuff. Yaz also had time to shine when she was working on the factory floor with Dan, played by Lee Mack. Admittedly, they didn't have much screen time together, but they made the most of it. For example, Dan started speaking about his 6-year-old daughter and working every day so she can have a better education and not end up like him, wanting to make it up for her because of his mistakes in the past. Yaz's best scene, though, probably came at the end, as Dan was one of those who fell victim to the plan, and Yaz wanting to give Dan's locket back to his daughter for saving her life. It's reminiscent of her being a police officer back home, the ones who have to tell the victims' families about their accidents and sad and tragic deaths. It was effective, but I felt that we didn't actually see it. I felt if we saw her give the locket back to his daughter and then about to say what happened, that would have been a good ending for the episode. But as it goes, it's still a great moment. It's really making me like Yaz a lot more. As for Graham, I liked his infiltration of the janitorial system and his brief bonding with Charlie. I loved his sarcasm when it's blatantly obvious that Charlie has a crush on Kira, but I felt he didn't have much to do when compared to Yaz and Ryan, particularly towards the end regarding Charlie's demise. You felt he'd have more to do because of his connection to Charlie, but that was something missing from the ending. However, he's still a joy to watch whenever he's on screen, and Bradley Walsh is still a treasure. Jodie Whittaker continues to shine this week, and my Jodie Whittaker moment of the week was definitely her confrontation with Charlie at the end. What was great is that she tried to talk Charlie out of his ruthless scheme that would cause mass murder, relying on the flaws in his plan, his own human emotion, and why he doesn't need to do this. When he refused and decided to go through with it anyway, she didn't give him another chance when he became confined to his fate with the exploding bubble wrap. It's a great balance that I love so much about the character. She'll try and talk you out of it first, but there'll be no second chances. It's not evil necessarily, it's more of an alien nature. I hope in the future we do get this balance of both light and dark, but safe to say, Whittaker once again nailed it this week. As for the supporting cast this week, I can definitely describe them as relatable. Both Dan and Kira, played by Lee Mack and Claudia Jessie respectively, didn't have a whole lot of depth to their characters, but they still felt like real people. I've mentioned Dan's family prior to this point, but I'll still praise it again as good stuff. Working for a family is something a lot of people can relate to. And also, Kira was very likeable, telling herself at the start of each shift that she can do this despite having doubts because of a shaky first week when she started. Again, anyone who has worked in a new job before can definitely relate to this, and I was saddened when she died, believing she was employee of the day, but fell victim to the bubble wrap. Having your hopes high and then instantly killed for them, that's kinda dark. I also have to mention our villain this week, Charlie, played by Leo Flanagan. The twist being that he was the mastermind behind the deadly bubble wrap. At first I thought he was too unthreatening to be the real perpetrator, but it made sense why. He's a socially awkward janitor who slowly but surely has seen the human workers being replaced by the system and those robot workers, so he decides to have the robots deliver deadly packages that will cause mass murder, which in turn will blame the system in the hopes of restoring human workers. Though what I liked was, in this plan, ironically, he became what he's fighting against, not thinking about the countless lives that he'll ruin with his plan, which is what the system did when it laid off all those workers. They didn't think about how many lives that they would ruin. Two wrongs don't make a right, though. Or do they? It was also a plan that relied on impulse, like the system does, because technology does that all the time. It usually just... If you think about it, when you're on your phone and you press something that you didn't mean to, it'll just do it anyway without asking, are you sure, like a person would. Also, he tried to be unfeeling like technology, but he found to be falling in love with Kira instead, and partly regretting her being caught in the crossfire. His emotions were his downfall, despite his best to be ruthless and as faceless as technology is. Plus, have you noticed that he is the first villain in Series 11 to actually be defeated? Unless he survived the explosion, which I find highly unlikely, unless he had a conveniently hidden teleport, he's the only one so far not to escape with the hint of,
I'll be back.
If I had any complaints this week, it would be from a production standpoint, as I felt that there were some dodgy green screen effects at times. The ones that stuck out like a sore thumb was definitely the conveyor belt scene. It just didn't look that finished. It was too obvious that they were on a green screen. It took me out of the moment a bit, but there's nothing too bad. The episode had great lighting, and the entire factory really felt huge and massive. And yeah, I think that's down to some great direction here. Great stuff. Plus, while I did enjoy the episode for the most part, I wouldn't call this the best episode ever, and definitely not the best this series. It's certainly entertaining, but I don't think it'll go down as a classic. At times it struggled to get going, but nothing too bad that made me want to stop watching. In fact, on second viewing I noticed things that I didn't notice before, such as Dan making a comment about how we never stopped to think what technology could do if it could take over our lives, and that's what happened in the factory, and that's what Charlie's trying to prevent. Now we're on to the section of what did you guys think? As usual, I put out a tweet on Twitter telling me to tweet me your thoughts below, so let's go through them. Our first tweet, Robot of Death, says, "Really enjoyed Kerblam, reminiscent of the McCoy era and modern culture satire, and I love a creepy robot." Yeah, I can tell because of the profile pic. Yeah, it did remind me a bit of the Sylvester McCoy era, particularly the Happiness Patrol and the Greatest Show in the Galaxy, because they both have these server robots. I've not seen Greatest Show in a while, so I kind of forget the server robot, but yeah. Yeah, those robots were pretty creepy. The big grin on their face, that was, put some clown makeup on there, that'll be even more scary, I think. Yeah, thank you for your tweet. Darren says, "Best space sci-fi setting for this season. Nice that it's the computer asking for help rather than being the villain. A villain actually got his comeuppance too. Not perfect, but enjoyable." Yeah, I agree there. It wasn't perfect, but I still enjoyed it. Yeah. And I do like that it's the, it was the computer asking for help, and it was humans being the villain here. Because usually when you get technology takes over story, it's always technology that's usually the villain. But they were kind of both the villain here. Charlie wouldn't have done what he did had the computer and the system not laid off thousands of human workers. So who's really right here? That's really good, I think. Yeah. And yeah, the villain did get his comeuppance, you are right. So no more "I'll kill you next time" for him. Yeah. Definitely enjoyable, yeah. Thank you for your tweet. And finally, Christina J. Samuel says, "I loved it. Brilliantly written as well." Yes, I agree there. It was very well written. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I liked it. It was fun to watch. Yeah, thank you for your tweet. And that appears to be all of them. As usual, if you want your tweets included, just look out for that. Tweet me your thoughts below after I watch the episode. So, to conclude, Kerblam is a fun, light episode that is not afraid to dip into satire and an overview of how technology is taking over our lives and work. While not a classic by any means, it will definitely go down as an entertaining piece of TV. Well everyone, that's all from me. Be sure to like and share. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the episode, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.